Hi everyone. I would like to welcome our next speaker, Mr. Rory. Rory grew up in England, and from an early age, he had his heart set on running a business after spending school holidays and weekends helping out his father's company. In 2012, he finished his degree in business management and moved to Australia on a working holiday visa. Within weeks, he had landed himself a job in sales and marketing, and in 2013, he got sponsored to stay in Australia long term. Rory opened his first business in 2014, selling consumers goods all over New South Wales, and quickly expanded up to Brisbane, Queensland in 2015. In 2017, he opened his first international location in Auckland, New Zealand, and has very recently moved to Perth, Western Australia to start the next chapter in his business journey. His business is currently focused on green solutions, selling water-based cleaning products by Purewax, and also representing different solar energy brands in multiple states in Australia. He's currently the managing director of Venture Global. Hi, Rory. Welcome to be a speaker here. Thanks for coming in.
Hi. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, we have got our audience here, and it'd be just great to kind of know more about you and your experience, so that they'll know,
Thank you for having me.
Most welcome. So yeah, so do you want to start with your share? I mean, you can just start telling about your experience with sales and marketing and your journey. So I've given a brief introduction. So
yeah, so basically all the way back in 2012, within my first month of living here in Australia, I started working with a face-to-face sales and marketing company doing live demonstrations of products. We started in shopping centre car parks and shopping centre sort of kiosks. We represented brands at petrol stations, and then we moved into the door-to-door and business-to-business sector. So I probably spent about 6 months working in face-to-face communications, one-on-one with customers, live demonstrations for them, before I then moved into the residential and business-to-business sectors.
That's great. And how has COVID affected you and your business in the last 6 months, and what are the things that you've kind of adapted to?
Well, COVID has definitely affected our business. Obviously, we've had up to sort of 40, 50 face-to-face reps out on the road and out in the field on a day-by-day basis pre-COVID, and towards the tail end of last year. And obviously, we've had about a month or 6 weeks where that just couldn't happen at all. So we pivoted and we turned basically our team into a telesales team. So we got a number of clients that needed us to do work for them over the phones, calling homeowners or businesses. And we also started doing a lot of Zoom consultations. That was actually how we stumbled across getting involved with some solar companies. Originally, we were working from Brisbane for a solar company in WA, which is a 5.5 hour flight away. And we switched all the team onto doing phone consultancies, Zoom consultancies. And then that's how we actually won the contract. So I literally landed in Perth. This is my 4th day. So yeah, self-quarantining at the moment.
That's great. So do you want to start your presentation? So you can just probably share.
Yeah, sure. I'll share my screen. Just let me know when you can see that.
Yep, we can see the screen.
Okay. So I wanted to run through sort of my sales mentality within the B2B sector specifically, and also just spend some time on building personal authority as well. If you've got questions as I go through, or if you want me to expand, then just let me know. But firstly, the sales mentality. Throughout my sort of 7 or 8 years focusing on the face-to-face sales sector, I've really channeled it down to 3 main areas where I spend my whole time. That's building your work habits, sort of building work habits that are specific to each salesperson within each sector that we work on. Focusing on when to be positive and when to be optimistic, because you can never be both at the same time, and you can never be 100% one or the other. And making sure that every single person always has a learning focus and a way of improving constantly as well. With regards to building the work habits, one of the big things that I've noticed in all businesses that I've spent time in and working with in the last sort of 7-8 years is working hard will only ever get you so far. And when I first started in sales, something that my coaches and mentors were always getting on at me was, oh, you've just got to work harder. You've just got to work harder and it'll come. But it gets to the point where you're working so hard and you might be spending 12, 14, 16 hours a day trying to work on something and you're just not quite getting the results. So that's when you really need to understand, okay, maybe it's not the fact that I'm not working hard enough. It's that I just don't have my own formula and my own work habits. For me, it took me months and months of numbers and KPIs. So just recording every single interaction that I had with every single customer, how far along I got in the process, and being able to use that to know where I was going with my approach and my pitch, making sure that therefore I could tweak my formula based upon the success that I was having on any given day or any given week or in any given month. And then just also understanding that that formula will not work forever. I might have a good run where it works for 6 weeks or 3 months or even 6 months at a time, but it's never, ever going to work that way forever. And I think coronavirus has probably taught us all that better than any sort of business lesson or life lesson ever would have done. But you've always got to keep working around or keep sort of going at the way you're actually working, keep changing that formula and keep approaching it from different ways so that you can get the right results. In terms of the positivity versus optimism, I'm a very big believer of it's got to be one or the other. When I first started out again in face-to-face sales, and especially when I first started going B2B and door-to-door, I was always trying to focus on being positive 100% of the time. But nobody, I don't care who you are and how long you've been doing sales, nobody can be 100% positive after walking into 50 businesses and getting told to get lost at every single one of them. So for me, I always adopted the 80-20 rule when it came to positivity versus optimism. If I knock on 10 businesses, it's fine being very positive for the first 8 of them. But for those last 2 of that 10, I've got to change my approach and be optimistic versus going in there knowing I'm going to get the sale. Now I'm walking in there to have a great conversation, or now I'm walking in there with an optimistic overview of having a great time with the person in there versus positive that I'm actually going to get a sale. Because for me, positivity is a thought process. You don't have to embody it with every single customer or with every single business opportunity that you go into. So instead of being the most bubbly person, the most happy person walking into every single business and constantly getting shot down, sometimes you really do have to change your approach and internally be very positive, but act as if you're a lot more indifferent and act as if you're going in with an optimism versus you're positive that that person's going to speak to you, or you're positive that the idea is going to work for that particular business. And I think the last thing with the positivity versus optimism is persistence wins, but only if the person or the customers that you're dealing with like you. So you can be as persistent as you like, but if none of your customers or none of the businesses that you're trying to engage or interact with, if they all dislike you, then you're not going to get anywhere anyway, because all they're going to do is find someone who they prefer working with. And for me, not every business wants to work with someone that is ornately positive or focused on being positive 100% of the time, because more often than not, that comes across as sort of a fake person or a sort of a fake business relationship. And the last part on this, the always be learning, for me, it's split up into 3 sections. You can learn internally, you can learn externally, and you can learn circumstantially. The internal learning comes from learning from yourself, reading books, listening to podcasts, studying the news, depends on the industry you're in. It comes from mentors, coaches, people that you attract to actually help you through your business journey. And if you're an employee of a company, it comes from the actual company itself, giving you constant education and training. The external part comes from learning directly from your customers, knowing what they like and dislike, and knowing where to go with the next customer that you come across that's similar to that. It comes from your competition. learning from your competition about why they always beat you or why the numbers are better than you or things that they're doing that you're not. And then the circumstantial, for me, that comes from learning from your mistakes, and it comes from the new situations. Again, coronavirus is the perfect example of that. Anybody who failed to learn from coronavirus versus always blaming it is going to be somebody who's going to start again from scratch as soon as this is all over. And again, I think the whole part of this presentation is summed up at the bottom with a simple quote: you make a customer, not a sale. And if you do focus on that, then all of that is encompassed in that sales mentality.
So how do you actually, it's really good points that you've said. So how do you manage to train your team at this point in time? Because normally I suppose you would have regular meetings with them, right? So do you manage to get the same level of engagement through virtual sessions?
Yeah, that's a really good point. At the moment, I'm running a Zoom, either a Zoom conference or a Zoom face-to-face meeting every 4 or 5 hours throughout the course of the day, just to catch up with somebody or get somebody to present a plan or a piece of work they've done or an approach from their customers. And I think I'm also spending longer on my phone, longer on WhatsApp, longer on my emails than I ever have in the past. I've always been someone who's incredibly face-to-face and interactive with all the teams that I've built over the years. And this has definitely been a huge learning point of working from home, from my bedroom, from my balcony, from my office. Yeah, it's good. Cool. I'll move on to the last part, which is building the personal authority. For me, personal authority is just perceiving yourself as a brand. We talk a lot about personal brands. And for me, having an authority or a presence is all about the way that you portray that brand. So that's the first point that I make. Know what your brand stands for. If you're talking about yourself, you've got to step outside yourself, see yourself as a brand and go, what do I actually stand for? And this is the point where you're sitting down and you're working on your mission, your vision, your values, your own personal morals, and the things that you perceive as incredibly important. And the things that when you're sort of stripped back to the bare bones, this is what you're going to live and breathe. This is who you are naturally. The biggest way to build your personal authority is to know what you stand for. And again, I think coronavirus has been the perfect teacher for us doing this, because we've all had to spend way more time on our own and way more time at home than we ever thought we would ever again. And that teaches you a lot about yourself. So again, every single person coming out of the other end of coronavirus should be incredibly aware about who they are as a person and what they actually stand for as a brand, especially business people and especially salespeople. The second thing is be consistent with how you connect to people. This for me is the most important thing in life, whether it is sales, whether it's a personal relationship with your partner, whether it's friends, whether it's a business relationship, even if it's relationships between yourself and your hobbies and the way you spend your personal time. For me, this is who you are, and you cannot lie with the way you connect with people. Eventually, you're going to get found out. So this is where you have to own it. You have to know exactly what your strengths are. And you need to, my approach is always double and triple down on your strengths, and don't worry about your weaknesses. Leave them by the wayside, and they'll get dragged along in the wake by you constantly focusing on what you're great at and what your strengths are when you're connecting with other people. Again, if you take it back to that first slide where you're talking about positivity versus optimism, some people have a sunny disposition and that works for them. Some people don't have a sunny disposition. And trying to have a sunny disposition when you don't naturally does not work. Trying to not have a sunny disposition when you do, everyone ends up just asking you, oh, you're so sad today, what's wrong, whatever. So for me, this is about being yourself. This is about knowing yourself and focusing on them strengths and weaknesses. The last point I've got is passion is the fuel to a following. And probably the easiest way that I've had this described to me is in business, especially in sales, the vision is your destination. Your plan and your strategy for how you get to that vision is sort of your route and your vehicle. So I've got my vision, which is, let's say I was in England and I'm going to Australia. I've got my plan and my strategy, which is the route to get there and the plane that I'm actually going to use. But the fuel is the passion. And that's what's actually going to get me there. I can have the clearest vision about where my destination is. I can have the best route in the world and the best plane. But if the plane's got no fuel in it, I'm never, ever going to get there. And I'm sure everybody listening, watching has read about successful people, done research, read autobiographies and biographies, blogs, checked them out on Facebook, listened to podcasts. But the difference in any success story is they had the fuel and therefore the passion to turn that vision and their plans and their strategies into reality. And the reality is there are far more people that didn't achieve those things than the ones that actually got there. And some people had a clearer vision and some people had a better plan and a better strategy, but they didn't actually have the fuel to implement it. They didn't have the fuel to carry it out. And I think if you want to have a real strong personal authority, and if you want people to follow you where you're going, whether that's customers, whether that's a team you're building, other businesses, your boss, whatever it is, you've got to use your passion or whatever you are passionate about as the fuel to that. And again, the line at the bottom sort of sums the whole thing up. You're building your personal authority. It's about what other people say about you when you're not in the room. It's not about what they say when you're there or the conversations that they have in front of you. It's about when you leave, what do they say to other people? Do they go, oh, she's absolutely great? Or do they go, oh, what a bitch? That's the difference.
That's great, yeah. So how do you, I mean, this sort of question, how do you normally handle when people are objecting your sales, especially when you go door to door? I think that's something you would have heard a lot. So how do you actually counter that? Is there any particular strategy that you use?
Hundreds and hundreds of times. For me, it works. I use two very simple strategies. And again, the only reason I know these is from numbers and from doing it over and over again. For me, I always follow it with the same phrase because that gives me time to think. So if someone gives me an objection, I go, that's absolutely fine. I completely understand how you feel. And then I use a model called feel, felt, found. So that's the first part. I go, that's fine. I completely understand how you feel. I was actually just speaking to Barry in the business next door. He felt exactly the same way as well. What I showed Barry was, this is the way our product works and this is how it's going to benefit the business. He then felt a little bit better. And what we found for him is if he just tried it on a 3-month basis and it worked, then he was actually going to commit to the year-long program.
That's right. So it's basically feel, felt, and found, that formula, right?
Yeah, feel, felt, found. I use the same phrase in my mind to give me enough time to think about what I'm actually gonna pass on to.
One more thing I wanted to just ask you is, like, see, since you've talked about building personal authority, so how does your team work since you handle a large team? When you're formulating strategies, do they all follow the same strategy, or does it differ as per their own personality, or do you have some sort of a framework and where they kind of customize it based on their own personalities?
Yeah, so for the first 2 weeks that anybody's working in the direct selling, so anyone who goes door to door, B2B, face to face in any way, they have a 2-week framework where we're getting to know them and they're getting to know our company and our strategies for success. After that 2 weeks, we then do a review. We work out what they like about what they've been doing and what they don't like. And then we build them their personal formula based upon their first 2 weeks of numbers.
Okay.
And then it goes really into one-on-one coaching. So for the first 2 weeks, everybody's taught the same way. And then based upon that, we've got A numbers, B numbers, and C numbers. And then our mentors sort of take them off to the side and deliver one-on-one coaching based upon, you're going to sell very similarly to me. This is what I did in my third week, my fourth week, fifth week, sixth week, so on and so forth.
And in terms of the consistency you were talking about, in terms of how you connect with people, so you maintain the brand image as well as your personal image consistently. That's right.
Yes.
So it's a mixture of both the brand image and how you are as a person, right?
Yeah, correct. And the only way to really know that, especially if you're talking about a brand that you're new to, the only way to really get to that point is by spending hours and hours and hours learning everything there is to know about that brand, whether it's research, whether it's reading the documentation the company's given you, whether it's sitting and asking the director or the founders of that brand all questions non-stop until you've got all the answers that you need. Only then can you deliver that part with real confidence. And sales will very quickly teach you who you are as a person as well, through the knockbacks and the ups and downs and through being persistent. And once you've unlocked that as well, then you can deliver both very consistently without really thinking about it as well.
That's great. Like, yeah. Is there anything else you want to add, Rory? Like, it's been a great conversation with you.
No, that's it from me. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rory. So I'll just be sharing your details and your slides with our audience as well. So if anybody needs any assistance, they can reach out to you, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
On email or phone is absolutely great. Yeah, no problem.
That will be perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rory, for your time.